As you think about ways to pay for college, you may start thinking about scholarships. College can be expensive, and scholarships are a great way to help pay for college. Last year, DC Everest awarded almost $200,000 in scholarships to seniors. To access scholarships, go to the DC Everest Student Services Canvas page. Scroll to the bottom of the page where you will see College and Career Prep. Next, click on Senior and scroll down to where you see Scholarships. You'll notice there are 3 different types of scholarships. The first type of scholarship is offered by the post-secondary school you plan to attend. To access these, you will need to go to the school's website and follow their guidelines. It's important that you look into these as soon as you know which school you will attend, as they often have deadlines at or near the end of first semester. The second type of scholarship is offered by state or national businesses or organizations. Any of these types of scholarships we learn about will be posted on our scholarship Google Doc. The third type of scholarship opportunity is our local scholarship program. This will be available in mid-February, so watch your email and announcements to learn more about this program. All of the scholarships we post will be posted on the scholarship Google Doc. To access it, click here. Whenever we receive a new scholarship, it will be added to this list, so it's a good idea to check this document once a week in case new scholarships become available. New scholarships will be posted at the top of the document. If you have questions about scholarships or need help, see your counselor in Student Services.
This video is a production of the Financial Aid Office at North Central Technical College. At NTC, we understand that financial aid can be complicated and confusing. This is why we have created this financial aid video to help you through the process. The free application for Federal Student Aid, or FAFSA, is used to apply for financial aid to help students pay for college and college-related expenses. There is no fee to file the FAFSA. High school seniors planning to enroll in college will complete the 2021-2022 FAFSA that becomes available on October 1st. Applying for financial aid. A common excuse students give for not filing a FAFSA is, "My parents make too much money, so I'll never get help." The reality is there's no income cutoff to qualify for federal student aid. It doesn't matter if you have a low or high income. You will still qualify for some type of financial aid, including low-interest student loans. The FAFSA is required for any student to be eligible for federal student loans or grants to pay for college, for federal work-study, and often to qualify for other forms of state and institutional scholarships. You need to apply for financial aid every year because the FAFSA determines your eligibility for only one academic year at a time. The FAFSA application covers a 12-month period of time that begins on July 1st of one year and ends on June 30th of the following year. Timing is very important. If you do your FAFSA early, you'll have a better chance at more financial aid. The FAFSA application can be submitted for the next year of college starting October 1st. That sounds early, but the sooner you get it in, the better your chances are at taking advantage of all sources of financial aid. The U.S. Department of Education provides more than $120 billion in grant, work-study, and loan funds each year to help students pay for college. Federal financial aid never runs out. Programs such as the Federal Pell Grant and Federal Direct Student Loans are backed by the federal government and will not run out of funding. However, some aid is given out on a first-come, first-served basis. This applies to some colleges who distribute institutional financial aid, and also to the state of Wisconsin, where funding for the various programs, such as the Wisconsin Grant, is budgeted. Basic types of aid available: grants, scholarships, loans, work-study. Most types of grants, unlike loans, are sources of free money that generally do not have to be repaid. The U.S. Department of Education and the state of Wisconsin offer a variety of grants to students. The Federal Pell Grant Program provides need-based grants to low-income students. students attending college in Wisconsin may qualify for a Wisconsin grant. Scholarships are aid that you are given, sometimes from private institutions or community organizations, that you will not need to repay. Loans are borrowed money that is repaid over time. In addition to repaying the amount borrowed, most borrowers also have to pay a fee called interest. There are two types of federal student loans, subsidized and unsubsidized. The difference between the two types is that a subsidized student loan does not accrue interest while you are going to school. Keep in mind, you must be enrolled with at least 6 credits. Once you graduate or leave school or drop below the minimum enrollment requirement of 6 credits, the government stops paying the interest on your subsidized student loan. The unsubsidized student loan accrues interest from the moment the loan is disbursed into your account. Federal student loans have a fixed interest rate for the life of the loan. Work-study is a way for students to earn money to pay for school through part-time on-campus and sometimes off-campus jobs. Work-study gives students an opportunity to gain valuable work experience while pursuing a college degree. However, not every school participates in the federal work-study program. Schools that do participate have a limited amount of funds they can award to students who are eligible. This is why it is so important for students to fill out the FAFSA as early as possible, as some schools award work-study funds on a first-come, first-served basis. What is a Parent Plus loan? When families fill out the FAFSA, one of the options offered for funding are Parent Plus loans. These loans may be needed if the financial aid offered to the student is not enough to cover all expenses. These loans are meant to supplement school, state, and other financial aid offered. Things you will need before you fill out the FAFSA. A federal student aid ID. This is something we will discuss later in the presentation. A social security number. If you are not a U.S. citizen, but an eligible non-citizen, you will need your alien registration number, a driver's license number, 2019 tax returns and W-2 forms, bank statements, and if applicable, information on investments and business assets. If you are a dependent student, then you will also need this information for your parents. A helpful tool for use in filling out the FAFSA is the IRS Data Retrieval Tool. The IRS Data Retrieval Tool is the fastest, most accurate way to input your tax return information into the FAFSA form. The IRS Data Retrieval Tool allows students and parents who filed a U.S. tax return to access the IRS tax return information needed to complete the FAFSA form and to transfer the data directly into their application. If you are eligible to use the IRS Data Retrieval Tool, we highly recommend it. It's the easiest way to provide your tax return information. It's the best way of ensuring that your FAFSA form has accurate tax information. You won't need to provide a copy of your or your parents' tax returns to your college. The transferred data will not be subject to verification, potentially saving you from having to submit tax returns to your school's financial aid office. Determine the value of assets or investments. Investments include real estate, rental property, trust funds, money market funds, mutual funds, certificates of deposit, stocks, stock options, and bonds. The net worth of current investments is the amount left over after deducting the debt from the value of the investment. For example, if you own an investment property valued at $100,000, However, $75,000 in debt is owed on the property. The net worth of the investment is $25,000, and this is what is reported on the FAFSA. Investments also include qualified educational benefits or education savings accounts, such as the 529 college savings plans. Do not include these items as assets or investments. Investments do not include the home you live in, the value of life insurance, retirement plans such as 401ks, pensions funds, annuities, non-education IRAs, or cash savings and checking accounts already reported on the FAFSA. Selective service. To be eligible for federal student aid, male citizens and male immigrants residing in the U.S. aged 18 through 25 are required to register with the Selective Service System, with limited exceptions. The Selective Service System and the registration requirement applies to any person assigned the sex of male at birth. When filling out the FAFSA, you can also register there. If you are under 18, the Department of Education will not submit your information until you turn 18. Most students under the age of 24 are considered dependent for federal financial aid purposes. The FAFSA asks a series of questions to determine whether a student is dependent or independent. How you fill out the FAFSA will depend upon whether you're an independent or dependent student. Your dependency status determines if you will include your information only or information from both you and your parents. The FAFSA asks a series of questions to determine whether a student is dependent or independent. Undergraduate students who are under the age of 24 are generally considered dependent unless they meet any of the requirements for an independent student. If one or more questions are answered with a yes, the student is considered an independent student. If every question is answered with a no, the student is dependent and must provide information about their parents on the FAFSA. Even if you don't live with your parents, are not claimed by your parents on their tax forms, or are paying your own bills and educational expenses. Being considered independent for purposes of receiving financial aid doesn't simply mean that you live on your own. Who is the parent? For reporting purposes, parent means your legal, biological, or adoptive parent or step-parent, or a person that the state has determined to be your legal parent. Grandparents, foster parents, legal guardians, older brothers or sisters, and aunts and uncles are not considered parents unless they have legally adopted the student. If you have divorced parents. If your parents are separated or divorced, the custodial parent is responsible for filling out the FAFSA. The custodial parent for federal student aid purposes is the parent with whom you live the most during the past 12 months. The 12-month period is the 12-month period ending on the FAFSA application date, not the previous calendar year. Note that this is not necessarily the same as the parent who has legal custody. If you did not live with one parent more than the other, the parent who provided you with the most financial support during the past 12 months should fill out the FAFSA. This is probably the parent who claimed you as a dependent on their tax return. If you have not received any support from either parent during the past 12 months, use the most recent calendar year for which you received some support from a parent. Helpful resources. If you need help filling out the FAFSA form, use these free tools. Select the blue and white question mark icon next to a FAFSA question to view a tooltip that provides information about how to answer that question. Creating an FSA ID, Federal Student Aid ID. While you can get your FSA ID as you're completing the FAFSA form online, getting it ahead of time and using it to begin your FAFSA form cuts down on errors and delays. When you create your FSA ID, be careful to enter your name and Social Security number exactly as they appear on your Social Security card. It's important to understand that the student and the parent may not share an FSA ID. Your FSA ID is your signature, so it has to be unique to you. If you are a parent of a dependent student, you will need your own FSA ID if you want to sign your child's FAFSA electronically. If you have more than one child attending college, you can use the same FSA ID to sign all applications, but each child must have his or her own FSA ID. FSA ID frequently asked questions. An email address can only be linked to one account at a time. If your email address was used to create an account other than your own, the person using that address will need to change the email linked to their account first before you can use it for your own. Assistance with the FSA ID is available. Please contact the Federal Student Aid Information Center at 1-800-433-3243. Financial aid and citizenship status. Undocumented students, as well as students who have received deferred action for childhood arrivals or DACA status, are not eligible for federal student aid. Students who are citizens or eligible non-citizens can apply for financial aid even if their parents are undocumented. Your parent's citizenship status doesn't affect your eligibility for federal student aid. In fact, the FAFSA form doesn't even ask about your parent's status. If your parents don't have Social Security numbers, they won't be able to create FSA IDs and therefore won't be able to sign your FAFSA form electronically. You'll have to print out the signature page from the online FAFSA form so that your parents can sign it and mail it to the address indicated. If you are unable to provide parental information. If a student is unable to provide parental information on the FAFSA, they can select, I am unable to provide information about my parents. Do you have a special circumstance preventing you from including your parents' information? Responding that you have a special circumstance or that you do not have a special circumstance will allow you to skip the parent information sections of the FAFSA. In either instance, you will need to follow up with your school's financial aid office because even though you have completed and submitted the FAFSA, an eligibility determination has to be made by your school's financial aid office. Acceptable special circumstances why students are not able to provide parental information on their FAFSA include parents are incarcerated, an abusive family situation, do not know where parents are, and are unable to contact them. Special circumstances. The FAFSA is a one-size-fits-all form. There is nowhere on the form where families can describe special circumstances that affect their ability to pay for college. Instead, college financial aid offices are allowed to make adjustments to the information reported on the FAFSA on a case-by-case basis. If you and your family have special circumstances that might affect your financial situation, be sure to bring these to the attention of your school's financial aid office. For parents who need to complete multiple FAFSA applications, parents of applicants are offered the option to transfer the parent's data into another applicant's new FAFSA form by clicking the blue box saying, "Does your brother or sister need to complete a FAFSA?" Financial aid offers. After you complete the financial aid application process and have been admitted to a school, you will receive a financial aid offer. Schools have different schedules for when they send or email financial aid notifications. Some schools may provide an offer of financial aid to you based on a projection of what your enrollment level at their school may be. Keep in mind, you can only receive financial aid at one school for a period of enrollment. Carefully review your offer of financial aid. Be sure you understand what type of aid you are being offered, grants versus student loans. Respond quickly to any request from your college. Check your email regularly to ensure that you don't miss an important email from your school. Email is the primary means of communication for most financial aid offices. We are happy to answer any questions you may have about how the financial aid process works. Please feel free to reach out for more information.